Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Lloyd Ross, and I'm back here live with another money. It's a money live. All right. This one's called The Psychology of Money. The Psychology of Money. So I'm really excited about this particular live because it's all about this particular book that I just read that a friend of mine suggested I pick up and read. It's called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. If you haven't picked up a copy, go grab it. But I'm going to give you the juice that I got out of this book because it's almost like we've been cut from the same cloth. He believes in money the same way I do. And I thought, wow, this guy I feel like I'm reading like a picture of how the same way I think about money. So if you haven't read the book, go grab it. But if you obviously read it, but if you haven't, I'm going to just go through. I've got some notes here that I want to share with you all about this particular book and the juice that's in it, because I think it's awesome when it comes to the psychology of money and wealth. Okay, it's about the mindset. There's so many great things to learn. So I'm going to roll through the notes. If you've got any questions at all, then all you need to do is just put some comments there, and feel free to share the live if you want to as well. Tag some friends in it if you think they need to hear this stuff. But tune in, grab a pen and maybe a notepad or your phone in your note section. Just write some of this stuff down because it's just going to help you with your mindset when it comes to money. So let's go through these notes, and I'm just going to roll through them because I've just taken so many here, which is awesome. So money success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill, right? And it's where your behavior is more important than your knowledge, which I talk about in my book, okay? It's 80% behavior, okay? So some money lessons, I love this. Some money lessons have to be experienced before they can be understood. It sucks. It's like experience is that thing you need right after you need it. And I think mostly when it comes to this particular sentence, I find those that go and trade stocks or trade FX or trade anything, they're the lessons they learn after they go and trade. So sometimes you got to let people go and just make the mistakes and go, wow, I'm not going to do that. And I've made those mistakes too. I'm like, well, I'm not going to play there because that's not going to work out. An individual investor's willingness to bear risk depends on their personal history. So if you had have perhaps lost money in the real estate crash of 2008, maybe you'd be a bit gun shy about getting into property. If you had have been perhaps grown up through the Great Depression, you would have not touched stocks. So the history of our background will dictate what we decide we're comfortable doing, which is sometimes we don't even think of that, right? Our background. For me personally, I've seen more people lose money in real estate than make money. And that's what's probably rationalized my mind to probably not go there as much. And it's not necessarily the real estate's fault. It's more just probably the financial structure of it. Too much debt. This is a really interesting one. And Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner, touches on this in the annual meeting of Berkshire, which I just watched, which is like 6 hours long, which is also amazing. I'd love to do an episode on that. So here we go. People who buy lottery tickets are largely the same people who say they can't come up with $1,000 in an emergency fund. They're wasting their safety nets on a 1 in a billion chance of winning big. So they're compromising their safety, their savings safety, by this one chance they're going to win really big. And what's fascinating is that the lotto used to be run and owned and run by the mafia. Okay, so it's just called running numbers, the numbers business. And then the states took the lotto off the mafia and started running it themselves. So it's actually and what Charlie Munger says, it's actually a tax on hope. So the government taxes the public on hope, which is crazy, right? So what else we got here? The entire concept of being entitled to retirement is at most 2 generations old. 2 generations, that's all it is. So this whole concept of retirement is not actually that old, right? But everyone feels entitled, like, I'm going to retire. I have to retire, right? Here's something really great. Everything worth pursuing has less than 100% odds of succeeding. Everything worth pursuing has less than 100% odds of succeeding, all right? And that's risk. And risk is what happens when you find yourself on the other side of those odds. And, so anything worthwhile like that, right? Anything worthwhile pursuing. What else we got here? Here we go. I like this. Good investing isn't necessarily about earning the highest returns, contrary to popular belief, because the highest returns tend to be one-off hits that can't be repeated, all right? And I talk about this in my master class about having a jackpot money mindset. Everyone's looking to swing to the fences, one big home run, boom, and I've made it, right? It's actually not about that. It's about earning a pretty good return that you can stick with and which can be repeated, right, for long periods of time. And that's when compound interest runs wild. The longer you can be in the game, irrespective of, if you hit it out of the park or not, just good returns are fine. Okay, because how about this? Few gains are so great that they're worth wiping yourself out over. And too many people are going for the big gains. They wipe themselves out. And you know what? We don't hear about the wipeout stories. No one gets on a Facebook or an Instagram or on a stage and goes, I'm bankrupt right now. Like, I've lost everything. No one's going to listen. Probably no one's going to listen to them. But they're also not going to have the self-confidence to jump on and say, I'm massively failed. So you don't hear about the wipeout stories. You hear about them in the news, but you don't really see people sort of talking about it. Here we go. And Morgan talks about this in the book, and I agree with him. He said, more than I want big returns, I want to be financially unbreakable. And if I'm unbreakable, I actually think I'll get the biggest returns because I'll be able to stick around long enough for compounding to work wonders. And a friend of mine, Gav, he talks about, as a boxer, if you can stay to the end of the fight, you've got a chance at least winning on points. And that's the same as wealth. If you stay in the game, right, and you live a long life, then just the mediocre returns are going to create massive wealth for you. So you've got a chance. If you stick around in the game without wiping yourself out, you've got a chance at winning. Okay, but if you wipe yourself out, you're gone. Right? If you get knocked out in boxing, you're gone. You don't get up off the mat, finished. You have no chance of winning the match. Because how about this? He goes on to say, a plan is only useful if it can survive reality. So you might have these grand plans of trading your way to wealth, but what if you may not survive that experience? Okay. And so you've got to have what he calls a barbell personality, where you can be optimistic about the future, which you have to be, of course, but also a little bit paranoid about, what will prevent me getting there. So you have to be your own critic, right? What else we got? This is so good. Here we go. This is awesome. Controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. Controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want is priceless. It is the highest dividend money pays. Money's greatest intrinsic value, and this can't be overstated, he says, is its ability to give you control over your time. No one talks about this, right? Using your money to buy time and options has a lifestyle benefit few luxury goods can compete with. I would say no luxury goods almost can compete with that, right? Here, and he goes on to say, and I've seen a lot of people saying this a lot lately, and I've seen it in a lot of Instagram posts, but this is where it comes from. Wealth is what you don't see. And you see this in the book called The Millionaire Next Door. Sometimes as a person walking past you, you don't even know they're a millionaire. I went to a conference recently. Well, it was like a training program for 4 days. And there was a guy in there I think he was worth 500 million. Like, you just wouldn't even know, right? Because wealth is what you don't see. Yeah, you do see some of it, which is obviously, you can't take it with you. So it's nice to spend it, as well. But it's what you don't see, okay? And it's the unsexiness that no one talks about that creates wealth, okay? So here we go. Everyone knows the tangible stuff money buys, right? But it's the intangible stuff that's harder to wrap your head around, okay? Because it tends to go unnoticed. But the intangible benefits of money can be far more valuable and capable of increasing your happiness than the tangible things that are obvious targets of our savings. It's the ability or choice to choose what I want to do today that gives me happiness over a thing or stuff. When most people say they want to be a millionaire, what they might actually mean is, I'd like to spend $1 million, right? But it's literally the opposite of becoming a millionaire. So because to become a millionaire, you have to, only speaking from experience, my personal experience, you have to actually do the opposite of what you think you would do with $1 million. You've got to be sensible. You've got to delay your gratification. You have to be very well disciplined. You have to be focused on your strategy. So many things, right? But so it's not about like, I want to be a millionaire so I can, and I hear this all the time. I say, why do you want to have independent wealth? Why do you want to have more money? Because I want to go eating one day in a restaurant and not have to look at the price tag. Well, you know what? To create $1 million, you've got to look at the bloody price tag, because you have to have some level of ability to save, right? So here we go. He talks about this. One of the most powerful ways to increase your savings isn't necessarily to raise your income. Check it out. It's to raise your humility. What the heck? Your humility. Because here's why. I love this. Saving is the gap between your ego and your income. Saving is the gap between your ego and your income. All right, far out. Look at our egos. It's true. Okay, so saving is a hedge against life's inevitable ability to surprise the hell out of you at the worst possible moment. And everyone thinks they know what's coming, but you don't. So having that saving amount of cash that's sitting there as a buffer is a hedge against the uncertainty of life. And life is really uncertain, okay? You don't need a goal or a reason to save a specific amount of money just to spend it. So people say, what's your savings goal? Well, I'm saving for a holiday. I'm saving for this. I'm saving for that. You don't need to have a savings goal. Savings without a spending goal just gives you the options of flexibility and the ability to wait, okay? And the opportunity to pounce when there's some great opportunity out there, right? I'm going to bring up the, let me click on here. Just going to bring up the, where's the comments? They're gone. Okay, 25 comments. Great. Yep, Gav type. Yep, he's on. Great. Brian Wilson, financially unbreakable. Yes. Stay on your feet. Yeah, he's on, right? So I was talking about finishing the fight. So it's the same with investing. You got to stay in the game. And there's more that he talks about with that that's going to help you a lot with this. Okay, so here we go. Ready? The flexibility and control over your time is an unseen return on wealth. It's just not seen, right? It's interesting. People will see stuff and think you're wealthy, but just because you got free time, they go far out. They don't even see it that easily, right? So I'm sitting here, what is it, Tuesday even? It's 1:50 p.m., complete freedom of time. I'm choosing to do this. This is my choice. There's so much value in that I couldn't even explain to you, right? But it's happiness. This is me. You're seeing me pretty much close to as happy as I get. Like this, I'm happy. Would I be happy if I was working corporate in some really ridiculous project in the heat in the Middle East? No, I got out of that because it was like, ugh. You know what I mean? But this is it. This is the beauty of having financial independence, doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is I love to teach and share and give value and build businesses and do it in my own time in an area that I love to do it in, right? Here we go. See, because what's the return on cash in the bank that gives you the option of changing careers, retiring early, or freedom from worry? It's incalculable. You can't calculate the freedom of worry. How do you calculate that? When I was in corporate, I happened to save money, and it gave me the option to resign. Do you know how happy that was to resign from a job you don't even like? Like I can't even imagine. What if I had never done that? Would I have would we have the success and business we have today? Would I have married Alicia? What is the actual measurable amount of that flexibility? How can you even put a price on your wife or your career? What you can't. And people, I think, they're just hamstringing themselves because they don't have that flexibility. It's so incalculable. It's valuable. So he says it's calculable in two ways. It's so large and important that we can't put a price on it. It's also literally incalculable. We can't measure it like we can measure interest rates, and it's why we tend to overlook it, right? When you don't have control over your time, you're forced to accept whatever bad luck is thrown your way. And you see this all the time. People are like, oh, I'm in bad luck, and there's more bad luck, and more bad luck, and more. And I'm like, fuck, if you just had $100, you wouldn't have had that bad luck, right? Or if you didn't spend every dollar you made, you can buy your way out of bad luck a lot of times. You can buy your way out of bad luck a lot of times. He didn't write that, I just created that. No, but that's what I feel. We've been in places where they can't get a car park close to the event. And it's just like, we're going to miss out on some good stuff and seeing some people. It's like stressful. All of a sudden I'm like, $20, let's pay to get in. Do you know what I mean? Like a small amount of money can grease the wheels of your life and create massive amounts of happiness and ease just for a few dollars. Okay. Here we go. Having control over your time and options is fast becoming one of the most valuable currencies in the world. Time is the most valuable currency in the world, right? If you have the flexibility, you can wait for good opportunities in your career and your investments. You'll have a better chance of being able to learn a new skill when it's necessary. You'll feel less urgency to chase competitors who can do things you can't. And you'll have more leeway to find your passion and your niche at your own pace. You can find a new routine, a slower pace, think about life with a different set of assumptions. And the ability to do those things when most others can't is one of the few things that will set you apart in a world where intelligence is no longer a sustainable advantage. Right? Because we're in a global world now that, you got to compete with highly intellectual people. But if you have the flexibility of time, it's one of those things that it is a competitive advantage in itself. Like me being able to sit here and do this across multiple platforms is an advantage I have over others because they're, at a job that's just day in, day out, and they just have no control over their time, right? Even if they're really intellectual, even if they're really smart, it limits them, okay? If there's one thing the pandemic has taught, okay, that's my own notes, is that stupidity spreads a lot faster than a virus does. That's my own. I don't know why I slipped that in there. But okay, here we go. There's something he talks about which is interesting. He says, academic finance is devoted to finding the mathematically optimal investment strategies. But people aren't computers, and I totally agree with this. We're not spreadsheets. We don't just walk around like, money in, money out. Like, a rational investor makes decisions based on certainly on numeric facts, but most people aren't rational. Okay, they talk about being rational. No one is completely purely rational. So here's what happens: you're better off to be reasonable than rational. Okay, a reasonable investor makes an investment decision in a conference room surrounded by coworkers that they want to think highly of them, with a spouse who you don't want to let down, or judged against silly but realistic competitors that are your brother-in-law, your neighbor, or your personal doubts. This is the environment where we actually make investing and money decisions. That's real life. And so investing has a social component that's often ignored when viewed through a strictly financial lens. Because people say, just save more, invest. And yeah, it's all good in theory, right? But you've got to make these decisions under this environment that is just, it's a social thing, right? And that's why, not buying the car and the house too early, it's this forever kind of disciplined process you got to go through to build wealth. Here we go. I love this. How about this for long-term investing? This is a big tick for it. Ready? The historical odds of making money in the US markets, that's the S&P 500, okay, the index fund, are 50-50 over one-day periods. So you could either win or lose 50-50 today. The historical odds of making money in the US are 68% likely in one-year periods. Pretty good odds. 88% in 10-year periods. So if you hold the markets or stocks for 10 years, there's an 88% chance you're going to be making money into that 10 years. Ready? How about this? Based on historical facts, if you put your money in the US markets and hold it for 20 years, there is a 100% chance you will make money. It's a certainty. Like, how would you go? Why would you bet against a certainty? So anything that keeps you in the game has a quantifiable advantage. And I know that Gab was talking in this chat thread here about stay on your feet. That's a great example, right? Where if you're boxing, stay on your feet to win on points. And you can talk about this in any race, any competitive experience. But you got to finish to even have a chance, right? And that's what this is all about. Being in it for long enough just to get the gains. It's 100% certain you'll make money in 20 years. Look at that. These are actual historical facts. Talking about margin of safety, that's a different episode I'll do on that. That's a different point. Here we go. There are lots of overnight tragedies, but there are rarely overnight miracles. And I think too many people are looking for an overnight miracle. That's why they're betting big on Bitcoin, or they're trading, or they're looking for meme stocks, or they're looking for the next big thing. That's because they're looking for an overnight miracle in terms of finance and money. Whereas it's usually like an overnight tragedy. Like, you can lose everything in a day. It's very hard to gain everything in a day, right? Because even if you do that, then you go and try and repeat it, and all of a sudden you lost it all in a day, okay? Risk is what's left over when you think you've thought of everything. So everybody thought they knew that what was coming. All of a sudden, COVID, no one knew about that. No matter how much you earn, you will never build wealth unless you can put a lid on how much fun you can have with your money right now, today. True success is exiting some rat race to modulate one's activities for peace of mind. All right. So I'm almost finished. I've got one more point here. The independent feeling of freedom and flexibility we get from owning, having residual and passive income, okay, is, and this is my own sort of spin on it, is more valuable to me than perhaps going and getting a $2 million house and having $1 million mortgage or more. Do you know what I mean? Like, for what purpose? Why? it's like, why would you trade your happiness and flexibility and freedom and things that are high value for things that aren't, for a little bit of extra money, just to either keep up with the Jones? Like, this doesn't make sense, right? And that's part of the psychology of money. All right. Freedom and flexibility is not as measurable as capital gains, but it is extremely underrated when it comes to financial peace of mind and happiness. And that's all about being reasonable when it comes to your money, not rational, because no one's a spreadsheet. All right. No one's a spreadsheet. You have to be reasonable rather than rational. All right. So Adam Lynch wants to listen to all this over again. So much good stuff, right? Go get the book. I'm gonna try and reach out to Morgan and get him on my podcast, interview him, because I think he is a psychologist. He's very clever, obviously, but I think it's just wonderful what he's summarized here. Well, what he read in the book and what I just summarized for you there. But 100%, yeah, exactly. I'm just going to go through the comments. Time, freedom, happiness. Daniel Marshall was the one that actually referred me to this book, right? So give Dan a bit of a like and a follow. Well, yeah, thanks, Colton. You are a great teacher. Thank you, my beautiful wife. She's out shopping on a Tuesday. Look at that. See, freedom and flexibility. She loves to do that. I'm sitting here doing teaching. We're doing things we love. This guy walks away. Thanks, mate. And then Gav's in. The fish that got away. Yeah, look, thanks so much for commenting. Look, if you're getting any value from this, tag your friends in this if they need to hear this. I think everyone should. And grab the book. And yeah, I'll see you. I'm going to go back to Instagram. Didn't work out when I clicked it, so I'm going to go do this on my IGTV. I'll save it there on my IGTV. You can also go check it out. This is also on my YouTube channel. And I'm going to do a podcast episode on this as well. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, go do that. It's Money Grows on Trees, Apple, as well as Spotify. And also, if you want to learn a bit more about how we created what we did, go to lloydjross.com. Check it out. That's where you can get my book. A lot of people have been asking me where to get it. There it is. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the psychology of money. And look, I'll see you soon for another live on The Money Show. All right, talk to you soon.